I think most of us do change when it's time to change. I think a lot of the time we change without even knowing that we're changing.
Hmm.
And because again, we are products of our environment, we're products of the people we surround ourselves with. We unconsciously adjust and adapt to minimize discomfort. So we'll change to do that in our lives. The people who get really bogged down in not changing, they're afraid of the unknown. They
Hmm.
have been in a status quo for so long and it's become the world they know. The thought of stepping outside of that status quo induces fear, not excitement.
Hi, I'm Kim,
And I'm Pancho,
and this is Now That You See It.
the show about the ideas hiding in plain sight,
The patterns underneath the patterns.
the stuff that quietly runs your life,
These are the conversations you can't stop thinking about
and that you can't wait to send to a friend.
because once you see it,
You can't unsee it.
all right,
All right.
shortisode time. I'm gonna do it.
Shortisode, second shortisode. Yeah, let's jump right in.
Let's jump right in. This one is 5 reasons why people don't change, even though they want to, which, man, man, is a common experience for many of us of like, why can't I get this habit? Or I want to do this differently. I have this
Mhm,
idea of like who I should be, and I'm never there. I'm just something else.
mhm,
So I'm going to read off like my 5 and a bonus 6, just pop, 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 pop right in a row. And then we'll open it up for discussion and then wrap the short set up. Okay.
mhm.
So first one is they haven't felt the full pain of the status quo. We've done things, they've done things to take the edge off a little bit, protect themselves from feeling the pain. And so like there isn't a lot of push motivation for change. The second one is the opposite. There's no pull, or there's not enough pull you out motivation for change because people haven't conceived of, they can't conceive of this reality they haven't been a part of yet, of like the full benefit of the change. And this definitely happened to me recently that we can go into in the commentary. But like if you can't conceive of the change and like the benefit, then like there's nothing pulling you out to overcome the inertia. The third is we get really scared of uncertainty and loss, and we overweigh the cost of change and like make the pain of change a really big deal, in part because we haven't felt the full benefit, but also because we tend to notice problems and fear and usually lead with that, just as a human brain, common to humanity. Fourth, it's not a podcast by Kim and Pancho if we don't mention Joe Hudson. And one thing that I really gotten from him is avoiding emotional experiences is the cause of a lot of suffering and avoidance of change. So often we are not entering into the lived experience of a change because we're avoiding the uncertainty of it, the loss of identity, the like, this is going to be scary. This is going to mean I'm going to have to disappoint people. This is going to mean that I'm going to have to exist in a different way. And I don't want to do that. This doesn't feel good. So avoiding the emotional experience, mostly uncertainty related.
Yeah.
And my fifth pre-bonus one is if somebody else's dream, it's not your dream. You don't actually want this change. You're doing it for somebody else because somebody else told you, because culture told you. You don't really have a why. And so it's not happening because you're like, I actually don't. We talk about self-sabotage, but often that's just like us not really identifying with like this thing we want.
Mhm.
And my bonus is that, like, I've worked with a number of neurodivergent clients who actually don't have, like, they're like, no, all of these things I just mentioned, they don't have it yet, or they've been through them. It's not applicable, and they're like, I still can't change. And what I've noticed is that executive dysfunction is real, and lacking startup momentum or needing a ton of startup momentum to like take that first step, being overwhelmed by big things and needing to break them into small things, but not having that help. Um, Getting a sense of like, how do I actually do this? Like, what is the process for starting this change? Habit stacking, organizing my life around this, my like process, my morning around it can be really hard if you're working with executive dysfunction and just like complicated problems are too complex. So
Mhm.
even if like the pain, the goodness, you're not avoiding emotional experience, it's literally the mechanics are too overwhelming. That can also be a part of why people want to change, but they can't or don't,
Yeah.
haven't yet.
Yeah.
Okay. What do you think? Did I miss anything?
Um, yeah, no, I think I can't think of there's one that I think you might be missing.
Mm,
Um, and like a lot of these, they're like Venn diagram circles. A lot of these overlap,
yeah.
but then they also have their own thing. One that is really clear and obvious to me because I'm coaching somebody through it right now is there is one thing in their life that they're not willing to give up, and it is undermining the rest of their efforts. Actually, there's 2 things. One thing in their life that they're not willing to give up that's undermining the rest of their efforts to change and improve. Um, with the client that I'm coaching right now that's happening with is playing video games from 8 o'clock at night to 4 o'clock in the morning.
Holy
Like,
cow.
and we've gotten it down to, okay, you stop playing video games at 1 in the morning, but, it's
Mm,
still gonna sabotage the rest of your life if you're
mhm,
up every day till 1 in the morning and you're spending 5 to 6 hours a day playing video games when you should be asleep. Like, there are so many reasons for which, and in general, this is like an extremely capable, extremely smart, gregarious, like, capable, high potential individual, and this thing is just completely taking him out at the knees. Um,
mm.
it's really clear to me, but it's not obvious to him. Well, it actually is obvious. He's called it his kryptonite, but he's not willing to give it up. It's too important. Um, and so it's like this anchor that's just keeping him stuck. So that's one. And then the other one is you're in a relationship and the other person isn't changing with you. Um,
Oh, that's a great one.
yeah. Like you
Yeah.
can't do it. You're a
Foiled.
product of your
Yeah.
environment. And so if you are,
Oh,
in a
man, that's a good
relationship
one.
with somebody else and you're like, "Yeah, I want to start eating healthier." But you have one fridge and one grocery budget, like you're not going to eat healthier. It like ultimately you're going to fall back into whatever their standards are. You want to go to sleep earlier, but they're awake with the lights on 2 hours after you'd rather be asleep. You're going to have a really hard time getting that habit to stick. So, um choosing your partner carefully and then constantly collaborating with your partner on how you want to change the person you want to be, all that stuff is super important because otherwise it's like rowing upstream.
Oh, yeah. Ooh, that's a good one. Yeah. I mean, to the extent you're not just your partner, but your people, like the
In
energy
general,
around you.
sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Like if you're growth oriented and you like change and you're around people who don't, any change is gonna be hard.
It'd be hard.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's a really good one. Okay. Well, so now we have record time on our Shortisode. Um, we went through 6, 7, and 8
Mm.
hour. Are we missing any? Any else come up as we talk? People don't change when they want to.
Yeah.
What's your number one of the ones we've listed? What's the one that snags you the most?
Well, that I don't know that any actually, it's the uncertainty one.
Mm,
I think I think most of us do change when it's time to change. I think a lot of the time we change without even knowing that we're changing.
mhm.
And because again, we are products of our environment, we're products of the people we surround ourselves with.
That's so
Like
true.
we unconsciously adjust and adapt to minimize discomfort. So we'll change to do that in our lives. So I think the people who get really bogged down in not changing, the first thing that came to mind for me was they're afraid of the unknown. They
Mhm.
have been in a status quo for so long, and it's become the world they know, that the thought of stepping outside of that status quo induces fear, not excitement. So then that can be for a variety of reasons, but that's the first thing that came to mind for me is it's like it's people who go to a place of fear and not to a place of excitement and curiosity. It's going to be hard to lean into growth if you're afraid of what things will look like on the other side of that growth.
Yeah, for sure. I wrote these, so I identify with all of them. Like, yeah. No, I feel like were you talking about people you've seen or for yourself? The uncertainty and like
Both. Yeah,
both.
both.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, for me, a great example is, like, I kept working growth stage tech startup jobs over and over, but I'd be miserable in every one of those within a 2 to 3 year period, and I'd
Mhm.
have to, like, leave and get another growth stage, tech startup job, kind of rinse, lather, repeat, but the outcome was always the same, and I was just terrified of what it would look like to not work that kind of job anymore, um, because of a lot of questions, right? And then I was kinda, like, finally like, "Alright, we're just gonna try it and see what happens."
Yeah.
And it was way better, but it took me like 15 years to do that. So that's an example for me. I think other people have their own examples. It could look like leaving your friends, leaving your partner, stepping out of your house, moving somewhere, even like you hate where you live, but you don't want to move. So it could be a lot of different situations where you're kind of like stuck in a place you don't like, but you're afraid of the blank canvas with no certainty about what it would look like if you were to start over.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it, it feels like the one of avoiding an emotional experience, especially around uncertainty, would also include the umbrella of identity change. Like
Yeah,
change, you know, you've been a certain way, you're known as a
yeah,
certain way, you have
yeah,
built a world around a certain way. Change involving an identity shift that might come with baggage of like, oh, I guess I am that kind of person. But I guess I am that kind of person. Or
yeah.
it's two hard experiences to hold at the same time.
Mhm.
But I will say that of all of these, I feel like the sneakiest one, the hardest one to overcome, the one that has definitely helped me the most, and I think for a lot of people, is the second. You can't conceive of the full benefit of the change. Like, because you literally don't have consciousness about it because you haven't existed in that yet. And
Totally.
the full benefit isn't available to you. So
Yeah,
you're like at many points, potentially at all points, going on a hope and a prayer, making the best decision you can without full information because there's no way you could have that full information until you get there
yeah,
and you're like, why didn't I do that sooner? How did I not know this would be so great? This was so obvious. And it very much wasn't. You don't
totally.
know yet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It reminds me of Ludwig Wittgenstein's quote, "The limits of my language mean the
Mm,
limits of my world," but it's almost like
mm,
the limits of what I can imagine
mhm.
limits the future you can think of for yourself. Um, yeah. Coming back quickly to the avoiding an emotional experience, I think it's important to, at least my understanding of it is to delineate you're not avoiding the emotional experience you would have when you are once you've made the change, once you are moving, or once you are making friends with a new group of people, you're avoiding the emotional experience of even holding that as a possibility in your head, right? The
Mm,
emotional experience of thinking like, I might need to start over, that's
mhm,
a difficult and uncomfortable emotional experience enough to where you don't even want to think about it and consider it, let alone start acting on it. So
mhm,
that's often where a lot of people get stuck. It's just like, nope, that's too hard to think about. I'm not going to think about
mhm.
it. I'm going to go back to doing what's comfortable. So that would be the first emotional experience to lean into, even if it's difficult.
Yeah, right. Because what has changed but loss without the expected benefits? So you're like, you
Yeah.
let go of the certainty, you let go of the safety of everything that's gotten you there so far, and you're existing in this like, the road runner over
Mhm.
the crevasse, just like looking down and being like, "Rah!"
Yeah.
Suspended. There's nothing under me, and I just left that solid thing. So you
Mhm.
haven't had the new stuff come in, and the emotional experience a lot of us are avoiding is that moment of suspension.
Yeah. The moment of even
Scary.
thinking about that suspension, like
Hmm.
putting yourself there. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then the last thing, which you just talked about, like it's really hard to imagine your way into the future. There's an awesome book called Stumbling on Happiness about how difficult it is. I don't know if you know Daniel Gilbert,
No.
Stumbling on Happiness.
Oh,
Oh my God. Okay, so Daniel Gilbert,
oh.
he's a Harvard professor and psychologist, and he wrote a book about this whole dynamic of it's really difficult to imagine what scenarios or what outcomes would make us happy and which ones would make us miserable in the future. Um, and there are actually ways of finding that out, and imagining what it would be like is actually not the best way to go. So,
Yeah.
um, for one example, would be like talking to somebody who's already gone through it and is kind of like you. That's going to give you a much better piece of data
Yeah.
than like sitting alone and thinking about it on your own.
Oh my God. Yes. When I go through change, I am a story seeker. I end up running like an interview cartel. Tell me about your experience.
Totally.
Totally.
Yeah.
Okay. We're about at 15 minutes. We're gonna shortisode it. We're gonna go. Stamped number 2. This was really fun.
Awesome. Thank you.
Okay. Till the next one.
All right.
Okay.
Yeah. Bye, friend.